All right, Nuggets fans, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by good friends here at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network. And I am here. I am ready to discuss the Denver Nuggets as we get into the preseason in full. The Nuggets have played a preseason game. Last I recorded was on Saturday before the Nuggets played on Saturday night. So we're going to record today and then tomorrow, and then Thursday and Saturday going forward. And so should get a lot of great reaction there. We'll be very, very excited for it. By the way, in the comments, let me know if my levels are good on the audio side of things. I had to restart my computer and I wasn't able to test before going live, but wanted to make sure that everything was working regardless. On today's episode, we're going to react to this last Saturday game. I've got some insights that I want to share based off of the rotation and based off of, hey, what did we see? What was it good? Was it bad? What to actually expect there? And then we will get into tonight's game a little bit later. So without further ado, let's get into it. I was wanting to do some good and bad versus for this first preseason game that we saw on Saturday. I reflected a little bit and thought that I did Locked On as well on Saturday night, and what just kind of showed a little disappointment in the way that the Nuggets had come out on Saturday. That was probably too much. I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys authentic, genuine takes. Like, this is not anything that is supposed to be like adulterated or anything. Like, this is very much just what I feel, what I think. And so for this particular episode of Pickaxe and Roll, I'm going to kind of reel it back in a little bit. Let's be a little bit more positive. Let's talk about this from the perspective of, okay, that was interesting. It doesn't necessarily mean that much because it was preseason, but I still think that it's important to take everything that we see, use it as data, use it as information, and go from there. So let's get into it in full. Good and bad versus Minnesota, where Denver loses 125 to 116. Start with the good. I thought Jamal Murray was really good. I thought that there was some good excitement for Jamal Murray specifically, where in just under I think he played 16 minutes, 12 points, 5 assists, just 2 turnovers. Did have 3 fouls, but a lot of that was because he was playing hard. He was playing consistent on the defensive end. 3 of 6 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. You like to see the 5 of 5. That's a really good sign versus an athletic Minnesota team where you want to see him try to use that against them and get them off balance. And Murray getting to be at a place where he's pretty athletic again is good. That's an exciting thing. You want to see if he could maintain that. He was also the only starter to be net neutral where everybody else was negative. And I think that says something about Denver's backup point guard situation when it goes to Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Julian Strawther, guys like that. So something to note there, but I do think that Jamal looks great, and that's a very exciting point. That's a good, exciting point for Nuggets fans where a lot of people have talked about Jamal looking good, but now you got to see it. You got to see it in person, and it was nice to see Denver really stand out from when Jamal's out there and when he's making plays for other people. He set the table for Nikola Jokic. He got to his spots. He had an and one. He had a pull-up 3. He had a mid-range jumper. Like, it looked like Jamal, but just like the better version of Jamal. And that's good. That's exciting. Also, some good. The scoring efficiency from just about everyone was really nice. That's a good sign because while Denver, there were some concerns I have about the offense, I don't have nearly as many concerns as I do about the defense. The offense seems to be taking care of itself. And on rewatch, it was really interesting to go back and look at all of the intelligent things that the Nuggets were doing out there. And like these were some high level sets, some high level kind of counters, basically like running plays where Cam Johnson is supposed to set a screen, but then he breaks the play and back cuts, so it leads into a read for other people, and it leads into a read for other people, and then they make a good play out of it. And it's really difficult for a defense to keep track of that when guys are doing everything that they can do to like not disrupt, that's not what I'm trying to say, but like you never want to have the opposing team kind of latch on to exactly what you're doing and know exactly what you're doing. So seeing a lot of counters, like there was a pistol action in the second quarter that led to an Aaron Gordon 3-pointer where basically Christian Brown was like the previous play. Christian Brown and Cam Johnson were running some things with, I believe it was Nikola Jokic, where somebody curls around the screen, or actually it was basically Peyton Watson. No, this was the Peyton Watson play where Peyton Watson curls around the screen from Jonas Valanciunas, and he goes down Main Street, has a nice little layup. That started with a pistol action. Then the Nuggets ran the counter with Aaron Gordon just a few minutes later, where he flares out rather than coming around the screen. He flares out, and it's just really nice to see Denver have so many ways that they can attack. And everybody was making shots. It was not, I mean, you can go through the box score if you want to, but Aaron Gordon, 4 for 4. Cam Johnson was 1 for 3, but like, I think that he'll be fine from a 3-point shooting perspective. Nikola Jokic, 4 of 5. Jamal Murray, 3 of 6. Christian Brown, 2 of 2. Even like Peyton Watson, 5 of 5. And Jonas Valanciunas, 3 of 5. Jalen Pickett was 5 of 9. We'll get to him in a bit. Julian Strawther, 3 of 6. Like a lot of like really impressive shooting performances from Denver. And overall, they shot 55% as a team, 39% from 3, 82% from the line. A lot of nights that's going to win as long as Denver takes care of the details. So Denver's offense is going to be really good, like top 3 good, bordering on top 1 kind of good. And that should be exciting to a lot of people. But now let's get into the bad. Actually, before we do that, according to FanDuel, I think Jamal Murray is going to have a really good season, but I'm not convinced it's going to be from a scoring perspective. So if you, like me, think that Jamal is going to have a really good passing season, according to FanDuel, Jamal is out. He's minus 200 to average 6 assists and plus 240 to average 7 assists per game. And that wouldn't surprise me at all, because without Russell Westbrook out there, I think that Jamal's going to stagger with the second unit a fair amount. He's going to have the ball in his hands. He's going to be setting the table for guys like Jonas Valanciunas almost as much as he's going to be setting the table for Nikola Jokic. So eventually, I think we're going to see Murray staggering with both units, and he may be in a situation where he's so much of a threat as a 3-point shooter, as a mid-range shooter, and he's just seeing and setting the table for everybody. He's getting to that point where he's as smart as he has ever been on the playmaking side of things, and that should excite a lot of people. So it's something I eyeballed, something I've been thinking about a little bit. But let's get into the bad. The defense. The defense was bad, and that is, like, it's not an understatement, I don't think. To open the game, the Wolves basically played 4 of their starters 12 straight minutes. They played Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, and Jaden McDaniels. Each of those guys played 12 straight minutes. That unit was plus 12 in the first quarter. Minnesota scored 40 points. They could have scored more. And each of those guys was extremely efficient. The only person who wasn't a part of that the entire time was Rob Dillingham, and he has a whole bunch of development to do. But those guys look great. Like Dante DiVincenzo had 6 assists. Naz Reid, 2 of 2 from 3, and both when Aaron Gordon was late on closeouts, like things like that. Jaden McDaniels rocking the baby to sleep and hitting some crazy stuff versus Cam Johnson. He's hitting some tough shots, but Like that's just the shakes. And then Rudy Gobert hit a sky hook against Jokic across the middle of the lane with his left hand. So it's it's tough because like those guys, yes, they hit some tough shots, but Denver also made it kind of easy for them. Bones Highland came in and had 18 points on 8 shots. Joe Ingles running things very easily against Denver's second unit. And it's just a lot of like I thought that Denver's levels on defense would be higher than they were. And the fact that they weren't is not like it's not a concern, but it's at least a note to me. It's at least something that I'm going to take into account. Also, they're playing at the level a lot with Nikola Jokic. And I don't think that they should be doing that personally. I think that they should be going to more of a drop system. But then again, like it puts a lot of pressure on Jokic individually in that case. And maybe the Nuggets aren't really willing to do that. Jokic didn't look good defensively. He wasn't really trying that hard defensively. And that's, I think, a major note. Aaron Gordon, I also didn't think looked very good defensively. Christian Brown was a little bit slow on the get up. Jamal Murray was actually the one starter that I think you could say, yep, he looked good. He looked like he was ready to go. So we'll see what happens and what that looks like for the rest of preseason. Like there will be times where Jamal doesn't try. There will be times where Yoke does try. There will be times where Aaron Gordon's really like, I'm going to lock in. I'm going to make some plays. And we will like, I'll have to come back to this and basically say, yeah, that was different. But for what happened in this game, this past game, like that is what happened. The defensive effort and the execution was just not very good. So something to note at least from the outset. Another thing, offensive rebounding, surprisingly. Like there were some really great things from Denver from an offensive perspective, but the offensive rebounding was bad. Denver collected their first 2 offensive rebounds with about a minute 30 left in the third quarter. And that to me was weird because last year, Denver 5th in the NBA in offensive rebounding rate. The main guys, though, that were doing it were Jokic, were Aaron Gordon, and surprisingly, DeAndre Jordan. When he was out there, he had by far the highest offensive rebounding rate or consistency of any of the Nuggets players. Like he was the guy that drove a lot of offensive rebounding. And Jonas Valanciunas, you would think, okay, there's an offensive rebounder right there. There's somebody that can soak up a lot of boards. He didn't grab any, I don't think. And now he was at the high post a lot of the time. He was not necessarily in a rebounding position all the time. But then for Denver's second unit specifically, they're playing 3 guards. They're playing Bruce Brown, Julian Strother, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Peyton Watson at the 4, who like while he was making the shots, so like there were no shots for him to like grab offensive rebounds for. But there's just not going to be a lot of guys in offensive rebounding position with that second unit. They're going to have to make shots. They're going to have to get to the free throw line. They're going to have to avoid turnovers because they're not going to grab a whole bunch of offensive rebounds. I don't think that that's going to be their setup, especially with that particular group out there. And then the starters, like Jokic will grab more offensive rebounds when he's locked in. Aaron Gordon will do the same thing, but Cam Johnson's not going to be a massive offensive rebounding threat. Like say what you want about Michael Porter, but he was a better rebounder than Cam Johnson will be. Christian Brown will hang around the basket a little bit and do what he normally does. Jamal Murray, probably same thing. But I don't think that Denver got better from an offensive rebounding perspective. The good news, I don't think that offensive rebounding matters that much. I don't think it's the most important thing. It's just been an identity thing for Denver over the course of the last 7 years. Like it's something that they've always done really well. So if this is part of the metamorphosis, Denver, like they don't have to be an elite offensive rebounding team. They just have to compensate somewhere else. And we'll see what happens there. Another good that happened from this game, Jonas Valanciunas centered bench looked very good. Like that looked like a very good lineup that can happen, that can work. They fed him the ball in the post on a few occasions, and he made good on that. He also had a really nice dish to Julian Strawther over the head. That was pretty impressive. As Denver continues to develop chemistry, as they continue to really try to feature Valanciunas, his foul trouble was a little bit concerning. He had 5 fouls in 13 minutes. I thought that all but one of them were legit. Um, he is going to have to like if Denver's going to play basically the same way, like Valanciunas will have plenty of passing opportunities, and the Nuggets will have to take advantage of that as much as they can. But they're also going to need somebody to play two-man game with him. And I'm curious which Nugget on that bench unit is going to have the best two-man game with Valanciunas. Is it going to be Tim Hardaway Jr.? Is it going to be Julian Strawther? Is it going to be Bruce Brown? Is it going to be Peyton Watson? Like, who's it going to be? I think it's a very curious idea. It might even be Jalen Pickett. Like that would not surprise me. I mean, Jalen Pickett making the 2 hero shots in that fourth quarter was incredible. That was so funny. Just the runner going to his left 3-point shot over a center at the buzzer was sick from Jalen Pickett. He might play himself into some playing time. He's not somebody that I expect to play, but the Nuggets can play him, and they should feel like they will probably go to him at some point, especially if they need somebody else to kind of play a two-man game with Valanciunas and nobody else really steps up. So I'm curious to see what it looks like. I thought the Julian Strawther shot selection was pretty bad in this game at times, but when he takes threes, he's looking pretty good. When he goes off the dribble and throws up the 15-foot floater, not necessarily something that I think Denver should be trying to like really go through, but he can make the other stuff. So we'll see what happens. Good Thing says more Duran, less Julian. There is an argument for Denver going this direction, in part because like you get better rim protection, which is something that Denver's going to need. You remove one of the possible liabilities from a perimeter defense standpoint in Julian, and you move Peyton out to more of a consistent like perimeter defender kind of role. But you're going to lose some stuff on the offensive end. And also like one of the factors that the reason why Deron Holmes, it took him so long to get into the game, I'll talk about this a little bit more in the second segment. It's because he hasn't necessarily showed out in training camp, while some of the other guys have just been better. They've just played better. That's not really a surprise when you get a rookie, or basically a rookie, going in there and trying to make some things happen. But I do think that there's at least grounds for trying to get Deron Holmes some active time out there, but it might come slower than I think a lot of people want. It wouldn't surprise me if Deron Holmes starts the year in the G League, for example. So, get into that. The one thing, by the way, 3-point shooting volume, bad. Denver they attempted 9 threes in the first half, which is just too low. Not an awesome thing. Not an awesome thing for Denver. And they need to prove that they can get uncomfortable. Like that's the line that I am going with in my articles and now in my podcasts. Denver needs to show that they can be uncomfortable in these situations. And one of the things that makes them uncomfortable is taking a lot of threes. They do not like to take 40 threes. They do not like to take 45 threes. It's against their better judgment. But sometimes it has to happen, you know? Sometimes it has to happen to really set the table for the rest of what they're doing, or it's just what the defense is trying to give them. They're trying to give them the threes. So if you are not taking enough threes as a team and the other team is taking a bunch of them, and you see like the other team goes 8 for 12 and you go 0 for 3, it is really difficult to make up the difference. And Denver ran into that in this past first half. So I'm curious, like I thought it might have been more of a Russell Westbrook thing, but I think it might be more of a Nikola Jokic thing than a Russell Westbrook thing, that Denver's 3-point volume is as low as it is. They just keep trying to work it into the middle of the floor. And I'm curious whether that changes because they need to have that metamorphosis at some point if they're going to keep up with the rest of these teams. Because at some point the 2-pointers are going to dry up too. Like people talk about 3-pointers drying up, but the 2-pointers dried up for Denver in the playoffs, where like, hey, a team found out a way to guard them in like congested space, and Denver was not making enough threes to compensate. That's just how it works. So I don't know. We'll see, but that's one thing I'm monitoring. Let's take a break. When we come back, I have a take on the defense um, that I want to share. And I think that we'll get into that. We'll talk about the rotation. I've got a rotation chart here that I want to show off to people. And then we will preview tonight's game against the Toronto Raptors that happens at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Let's talk about the defense. I said I had a take at the end of the last segment. The Nuggets have to prove they can guard to me. I'm not just going to assume that it's going to happen. They have to prove that they can do it. And what I mean by that is that, like, I talked about this offseason that I think that they got better defensively. I do think they got better defensively. It's not just because of the personnel that they got, it is mostly because of the momentum, the effort, the energy, the desire, um the willingness to do the hard things. It's that kind of stuff. But a lot of that is intangible. A lot of that is not, hey, our personnel got better. A lot of that is not, hey, our defensive schemes got better. Now, we'll see if they have. Jared Dudley is Denver's defensive coordinator this year, according to David Adelman. And we will see whether he can bring some stuff. For what I saw in the first preseason game of the very first game of the year, not awesome. Like it was basically everything that Denver had done last year. Now, that might be different. Like we'll see whether that changes. Denver may just not have shown a lot of what they're going to do. So we'll have to pay attention to it. But to me, the burden of proof is on the Nuggets to get better. It's on the Nuggets to improve and show that they can guard. One thing about the championship run was that Denver was an average defense for the overall portion of that year. They had some real low points at the beginning of the season, and then they found their stride. Then they found an opportunity where they were basically the fifth best defense or so in the NBA for about 2 to 3 months. And then they shut it down after that. They looked pretty shaky. Like before that period, they looked pretty shaky. After that period, they looked pretty shaky. But during the middle of the season, they showed that they could guard. They showed that when they locked in, they could do it consistently. And that to me is important. That's very important to me. I'm not going to assume that things are going to change just because it's a different year. Denver to me is going to have to show it. Jokic is going to have to show it. Aaron Gordon's going to, and like Christian Brown are going to have to show it. Those guys talked about wanting to be better, like really focusing on defense this year. We'll see. Like, we'll see. It would be great if Denver could do that. It would be great if Denver really focused in, really locked in, and showed that they could be a top 10 defense for an extended period of time. But they just have to show me. Like that, I'm just not going to assume that it's going to happen. Now, I don't necessarily like they've already shown that they could be outside of the top 10 and still win a title. So I'm not going to write them off if they don't do it. But it sure would be nice, right? It sure would be like really nice to say, okay, you are bringing it on this end of the floor and you are showing just exactly what you said you were going to do. And It's not just on the offensive end. It's on the stuff that's hard. It's on the stuff that you don't want to do because nobody wants to play defense. Really, they might say that they do, but and maybe there are some guys that really do. But I don't think Denver has anybody that wants to play defense on their roster. So, what are we going to do? What are we going to think about that? All right. Marco's complaining about Jamal Murray in the comments. He was the only guy that brought it last game. So let's try to turn that around. Update those perspectives at least a little bit, buddy. Okay. Let's go to the rotation here real quick. Denver in their first preseason game ran a 10-man rotation. Actually, it technically was an 11-man rotation because Christian Braun got into I don't know if he hurt himself. I actually didn't see any coverage of this at the end. But end of the second quarter, Christian Braun came out of the game and Spencer Jones came into the game over guys like Jalen Pickett, over Hunter Tyson, over Zeke Naji, over Deron Holmes, over any of the other bench players. And it was Spencer Jones who came into the game. So I put Keon Johnson at the 2 in this lineup. I don't know if that's actually true, but Aaron Gordon stays at the 4. Spencer Jones went to the 3. But basically, this was the rotation. Denver played what I would call a normal hockey subs rotation in the first half, and then they sat the starters in the second half. So I'm not thinking about that section as much. Jamal basically played. He didn't stagger with the second unit, which I thought was interesting. He played longer into the first quarter than he really ever has before. Again, this is a preseason rotation, so take this all with a grain of salt. This may not be what they do. But Tim Hardaway Jr. and Peyton Watson were the first guys off the bench. They came in for Cam Johnson and for Aaron Gordon. Those guys didn't come back in super early into the game. It was really just an opportunity to give Tim Hardaway, Peyton Watson extended run with the second unit. And Bruce Brown only played point guard. Tim Hardaway only played shooting guard. Julian Strawther played about 6 minutes off the bench, which that's something to consider, that if you are multiplying that by 2 means that your 9th and 10th man, which in this case was Jonas Valanciunas and Julian Strawther, those guys are only going to play about 10 to 12 minutes a game. So that's what happens when you run a 10-man rotation a lot of the time, especially if Jokic is going to play 19 minutes, which I was like, Jonas came to the scorer's table in the late first quarter with about 2.5 minutes left, but Jokic was at the free throw line at that point. And then I just don't think there was another stoppage to try to get Jonas into the game. I would have liked to see somebody take a foul so that Jokic could get out and then Jonas could get in. But I don't know. We'll see whether the last thing Nuggets fans want is for Jokic to still play on average about 36 to 38 minutes a night with Jonas Valanciunas on the team. You want him to be able to take on some of those assignments. So I'll be looking for that going forward to see whether he's actually going to have those numbers drop. But the key thing with this Jokic sub at kind of late first quarter into the second quarter for Valanciunas is that you really should get Jokic out a little bit sooner than the end of the first quarter. You just have to. So we will see whether they're actually able to do that. But as you can see, hockey substitutions, no starters staggered. I told you not to expect it. I also told you to expect Peyton Watson at the power forward spot, and I think that makes the most sense. And Denver at this point is I think that's where they're going to be. I do not think that Deron Holmes is going to be a factor in the rotation immediately, but we will see. Dylan Cantor asks, do you think Jokic is telling Adelman he wants to play those minutes? I think Jokic wants to play as many minutes as he can. I think he's always wanted to play as much as possible. And he's a very competitive person. And when he plays this much, a lot of the time it is because like he'll do what the coach says that he's supposed to do. Like that he's not gonna he's not gonna pull a bad teammate situation thing and say, no, I'm going back into the game, whether you like it or not, or I refuse to come out of the game. He's not going to do that. But I do think that Denver needs to come up with more reasons to actually keep him out of the game. And one of those is to make sure that the bench minutes are good enough. So we will see what happens. Yeah, not the best situation for Denver. I think that was about what I expected from a rotation perspective. Though there are some things that I wonder if they will kind of figure out going over the rest of this preseason. Like I would like to see some more blended lineups going forward. Although this was the expectation. David Adelman even laid this out that he wanted those starting units and bench units to get some chemistry together first, and then he would work on blended lineups going forward to see what would happen and see which guys actually made the most sense together. But yeah, it's the first opportunity to really look into it, and I'll do it again tonight, and you can see how the rotation looks tomorrow. I'll put up the same graphic for game 2 tomorrow when we're doing the show live. Okay. Nuggets versus Raptors. According to FanDuel, the Nuggets are 1-point favorites right now. Actually, not the Nuggets. The Raptors are 1-point favorites right now, which implies to me that somebody's probably sitting out because the Nuggets would have, I think, the Nuggets would definitely have a higher gap, I would say, between like what they are versus what the Raptors are. So Vegas, I think, is implying that somebody for the Nuggets is going to be sitting out. And I'm curious whether that's going to be Jokic. I'm curious to see whether that's going to be Jamal Murray or Aaron Gordon or any of the other starters. One of the ways that you can work on blended lineups is you just rest one or two of the starters at any point. And like those guys, are going to be fine. They're going to figure some stuff out. But like Cam Johnson, you want to see him play as much as possible. You want to see him play with a bunch of different guys as much as possible. If it were up to me and like Christian Brown needed a break or Aaron Gordon needed a break, I would want to see something like a Murray, Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson, Peyton Watson, Nikola Jokic lineup. I'd love to see something like that for extended periods of time in a game like this. I don't know who the Raptors are going to play in this particular one. There's no like major injury report that comes out before these things. It's just kind of by the seat of your pants, figuring out who's going to play, who's not going to play. But the Raptors have Brandon Ingram now. They have Scotty Barnes. They still have Jakob Poeltl and guys like that, but they're going to be probably if everybody's healthy for them, it's probably Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl. And it's a pretty good 5. It's not like it's a whole bunch of vets. It's not the youth and development that they're really going for before, but it's players that they've traded for. And it's size, it's more athleticism, it's skill. It's like Brandon Ingram's going to be taking fall away 2-point jumpers, and he's probably going to make them more than you think that he should until the fourth quarter when he misses them. And it's going to be Jakob Poeltl probably doing a lot of what Rudy Gobert did in this last game and really kind of going at Jokic from a physicality perspective and like doing some good stuff on the defensive end, but more than anything, just like surprisingly good on the offensive end. So if I'm Denver, I really want to see just a couple of things. Like the first, again, is see some more blended lineups. I don't necessarily want to just see the full bench. I don't want to see the full starters all the time. But I would like to see some groups where you try to take advantage of Peyton Watson's defense, where you try to take advantage of like Bruce Brown getting in there. And he was one of the guys that came in off the bench a little bit later in this game. Kind of if you go back, it was Tim Hardaway Jr. and Peyton Watson that came in rather than Bruce Brown who came into this game. So I'd like to see Bruce Brown be the main guy to start, and maybe even Julian Strother be the main other guy that kind of comes in and see what they look like with some of those lineups. That to me makes the most sense as you try to figure out which lineups make the most sense, which lineups make everything go around. Maybe Jalen Pickett gets in a little bit sooner. Maybe Deron Holmes gets in a little bit sooner. I'm not expecting it, but who knows? Keith says, need to see more from Cam and Tim Hardaway Jr. I'm hoping THA is more Russ and less Dario. Yeah, like Tim had 3 assists, and he just it's actually funny. Some of the shots that he took were bad. I will say that. Some of the 3-point shots that he took were bad. But for a Nuggets team that clearly was not making a lot of threes, not taking a lot of threes, I think that there's nothing wrong with that as long as it doesn't take away from the overall health of the offense. And I don't think that it did. I honestly think that, and this is, again, preseason night 1, but I think you're going to need somebody like Tim Hardaway. I'd like to see him and Jokic have a little bit more of a 2-man opportunity. And I would like to see what it looks like when he gets some actual open jumpers, because the jumpers that he took were contested, and he's going to do that every now and then. And honestly, it's probably going to bother some Nuggets fans. Like that's probably something that's going to happen. But you have to remember that Denver was 30th or pretty close to it in 3-point volume, and you need somebody to take those shots, because it's not going to be Christian Brown in all likelihood. It's not going to be Aaron Gordon in all likelihood. Those guys will take them occasionally. Bruce Brown will take them occasionally. Peyton Watson will take them occasionally. But you need somebody to take them on volume, on mass. And if you can get that going, then we'll hope that they can actually get that volume up. So that's one thing. The other thing is I'd just like to see them play with a little bit more aggressiveness on the defensive end. Again, 1 turnover in the first half of this last game was bad. Are they just going to play a defensive scheme that's aggressive without really playing it aggressively? Or are they going to play a more conservative scheme where they actually force the shots that you'd like them to force? Or are they going to keep doing what they're doing and not necessarily really lock in on that end? I'd like to know. Again, it's preseason, but I think that Nuggets fans are all at least thinking about it, that last year they were 21st in defense or whatever, and it didn't necessarily look that much better. So I would like to see them force some turnovers. That would be like the first thing on the bucket list. Just force some turnovers and really try to get into passing lanes, especially with that starting unit. Okay, I think that's going to do it, folks. Game tonight at 8 p.m. Mountain. I'll be live after that on Locked On, and so make sure to go check that out. But then for Pickaxe and Roll, I'll be live again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Again, it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And then the Saturday is going to be in studio actually at 11 a.m. But the others are going to be 10 a.m. And I'm very excited for it. It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. Hope everybody has a great week to start here. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Pickaxe and Roll. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I'll talk to you guys very soon.